order. We have one item on the agenda, the Community Services Capital Projects Briefing. Terry?
Good evening, Council President, Council members. We're excited to be here tonight to talk about some of the projects we got done in 2013 and 14, which now seems like quite a ways away, and some of the ones that will be on the agenda for the first quarter in 2015. There's a lot of the community services staff here tonight to help present, but first we're going to have Leslie Bldg from Parks Planning and Natural Resources, and then after that, Peter Renner will be going through all of the facilities capital projects. Ask us any questions. As you know, there are a lot of large projects we do, but there's also a lot of smaller projects that are being done year-round throughout the city to make this a more livable community. We try to use all the dollars as wisely as we can. We've been very conservative over the last few years, obviously when our budget has been tight, and we're catching up on some of those projects as we're going forward in 2015-16. We'll be back as the year goes on as some of those other projects are moving forward, but we certainly wanted to catch you up and the public on where their tax dollars are going and some of the things that are happening around the community. So I will turn it over to Leslie Bldg at this time. Thank you.
Good evening, Council President, members of the Council. Thank you for providing the opportunity to bring you up to speed on what's happening with major maintenance and capital improvements here in the City of Renton. So I wanted to highlight some of the policies as part of the adopted 2015 and 16 budget. One of the things for us that's really important is to be flexible, because as the biennium progresses, projects can become a higher priority, while others are delayed depending on quite a few factors. Sometimes additional funding is needed, or additional funding sources actually appear, such as grants, or projects can be carried over to the new fiscal year due to environmental processes, permitting, but we always want to minimize the inconvenience to the public. The Capital Investment Program represents the city's near-term investment priorities, its plan to preserve past investments, and the provision to provide adequate facilities for the future. The City Council reviewed and adopted updated criteria in evaluating and prioritizing CIP projects in 2013, and two dimensions were considered: importance and urgency timing. And this is the importance. So a lot of the projects that we do are required or mandated by court, federal, or state government laws or regulations. The American Disabilities Act, for example. We always try to maximize our return on the investment through grants or other funding sources. And all of our projects are consistent with adopted plans, comprehensive plans, Parks, Recreation, Natural Areas Plan, the 6-year TIP, Trails Plan, and other planning documents. And this is the second dimension, urgency and timing. So a lot of times grants and other funding sources just appear, and so the availability and timing of those funding sources play into the timing of when projects can occur and influence that decision-making process. Again, we try to reduce the inconvenience to the public in high-use areas. A good example would be Coulon Park. It's a pretty high-use area. And we are required to increase capacity in infrastructure under the Growth Management Act. And so we always try to maintain concurrency with growth. Well, this brings us to the more exciting, for me anyway, part of the program. Projects that we've completed in 2014 and what we're working on the first and second quarters of 2015. So the project titles correlate to the 6-year CIP, the adopted project budget. So the Sunset EIS Park, otherwise known as the Sunset Neighborhood Park, was a 9-month public process. Full build out, and that's the master plan that you see in the lower right, is $5.9 million. And this plan is currently being utilized to support $3.6 million in state legislative funding requests. The plan includes a phased approach. The plan that's in your lower left corner is Phase 1. Phase 1 is anticipated to cost $3.6 million, and Phase 2, $2.3 million. We will be applying for grants next year. We were successful in receiving what's called a waiver from the Recreation and Conservation Office to apply for a grant next year for property that was acquired in 2014. The Meadow Crest Playground is really probably one of the most exciting things that happened. A great partnership project, great community support. Just the public loves this facility. The total project cost was $2.4 million. Nearly 50% of the city's portion, which was $1.25 million, was supported through donations. That is significant. The North Highlands Park Improvement Project is, it's really an extension of the Meadow Crest play area. This will complete the playground through the nature or the quiet area portion. It's kind of the back portion adjacent to the Highlands Park, and also include paved surfacing in the patio area, the exit from the neighborhood center into the Meadow Crest play area. We have a total revised budget of over $300,000. We're coordinating with the Renton School District. We're also coordinating with the Renton Housing Authority for a raised bed garden. So there's quite a few elements here: new nature area, patio area, new tennis and basketball courts will be under construction this summer, new lighting for the tennis courts, and then the raised bed community garden. So this bridge was over 50 years old. We did 5 structural repairs dating back to 1980 to keep this bridge alive over time, and we just couldn't do it. It was determined to be structurally unsound. We received a $1.1 million grant, and in 2014 we demolished the bridge. We just opened bids for construction. We'll be coming to council within the next couple of weeks to award the contract to the lowest responsive bidder. And we hope to have all work completed by October of 2015. So the next several slides, all the slides that are related to Coulon Park, were identified as part of the PN&D, it's a structural engineering firm, 2012 condition assessment report. That's where all the structures were evaluated in Coulon Park for their sustainability. In 2014, we replaced the log booms, they were wood, with high-density plastic, orange buoys for noticeability, and we cut and calved one dolphin. And the dolphins are these vertical structures. And that was done for about $225,000. In 2015, this will be a major project. This is to replace the pavers that are settling in the park near the pavilion area, near Kidd Valley and the North Shelter. These pavers are over 32 years old, and the parks crews have done an incredible job maintaining safe walking surfaces since that time. But it's time to put in poured-in-place concrete. It'll be rebarred together, new tree grates, much larger tree grates, and we'll be replacing the new trees in the tree grates for a much more sustainable walking surface. We have a revised budget of $620,000 for this. We're currently replacing the water walk lighting at Coulon Park with new LED lighting. Again, the existing lighting to the left is 32 years old, and it's functional some of the time. So the new LED lighting will be fully functional and much more efficient. We deferred a project, the Teasdale Park parking lot, to 2015 due to insufficient funds, and we utilized those funds to do a condition assessment report for all the paved surfaces in Coulon Park. And the report prioritizes all the areas as high, medium, and low, and will be utilized to prioritize and budget for future work. So high priority projects are identified as high public safety and a service life of 5 to 10 years, medium, a service life of 5 to 7 years, and low, 7 to 10 years. The next category is parks major maintenance, and while I indicate that it includes 5 categories, there's 7 categories here, and the 5 categories that we will be working on in 2015 and 16 are playgrounds, light system upgrades, boundary surveys, landscape renovation, and structural reviews. In 2014, we designed new lighting and lighting repairs for the Renton Senior Activity Center. This project is nearing completion of construction within the next couple weeks. So we'll be replacing all the lights and poles with new LED lighting, which is much more efficient, new bollards from the coffee area to the front of the building and along the main walk. And if you haven't been out there to see this, it not only does it look so much better, but the lights are on, they're operational now, and it's extensively lighter. It could be pretty dark back there. Heritage Park was opened in 2007, and since that time we've had some seasonal drainage issues, as noted in these slides, west of and adjacent to the soccer area. A new catch basin was installed in 2014. In 2015, the parks crews will be regrading this area to the catch basin, and we have $175,000 budgeted to secure a landscape plan and do plant installation in the newly graded and better drained area. We conduct inspection reports for all of our bridge structures and major structures throughout the whole park system at 5-year intervals. The Cedar River Trestle Bridge was inspected in 2014. The exception to doing it only every 5 years is when an engineer says you need to do this every 3 years. So we've got this on a 3-year schedule. The structural repairs for 2015 include cutting off the end caps where we've got decay and installing flashing to prevent further decay. And while we have $100,000 budgeted for this project, the bulk of the project will be used to diapering the bridge so that debris does not fall into the Cedar River. In 2015, we have 2 projects scheduled for parking lot and drive repairs. Teasdale Park, which was reprogrammed, as earlier discussed. So you can see the curbing is broken, and there's a lot of alligatoring, cracking within the paved surfaces, and we'll be doing the same improvements at Hauser Way as well. We have $150,000 budgeted for this project. We always try to maintain safe walking surfaces throughout our system, and also to make sure that our facilities are accessible. In 2013, we replaced the Cedar River Trail upper walk. There was a lot of heaving caused by root damage, so we did extensive root pruning as well. We installed a new walkway, ADA walkway at Teasdale Park where none existed, from the existing playground to the picnic shelter. And in 2014, we also installed a new ADA walk from the Philip Arnold parking lot to the activity center. In 2015, we have $130,000 budgeted to pave the soft surface walk, which has been designated a safe route to school in Highlands Park. And the walkway extends from Highlands Elementary to Edmonds Avenue. This is also a companion project with the lighting that will also be installed at Highlands Park. We have multiple sport courts throughout the city. In 2013 and 14, we demolished the basketball court. It's a 13-year-old court at Ron Regis Park, and resurfaced it, restriped it, and this is what you see in the photograph today. It's gorgeous. It's probably one of our more higher-used basketball courts. This is where flexibility comes in. So originally in 2015, we had planned on refurbishing Kiwanis Park tennis courts. As you can see here on the photograph on the left-hand side of the screen, that's Coulon tennis courts. We reprioritized Kiwanis, which does not exhibit these kinds of decay, into 2016 and moved Coulon into 2015. So the Coulon courts will be demolished and replaced entirely, starting shortly. The work will be done before summer. We will be resurfacing the basketball court at Maplewood Park and also the basketball court, multi-purpose court at Highlands Park.
Leslie, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How long will that take for the Coulon tennis court, approximately?
Well, it'll take a couple months, but we're going to be using, I'm using the acronym, and I apologize, the JOC. And so we have a contract with a firm that contracts with firms. And so we have the work lined up to do that.
Early June is the estimated completion date, so we'll miss the months of April and May.
Okay. Thank you.
We have 3 areas where a focus for tree maintenance within Renton: structural and safety pruning, high-risk tree removals, and special projects. This is an example on your screen of a structural and safety pruning, which was completed by Puget Sound Corps through a $20,000 Department of Natural Resource grant that Terry Flatley secured last year. And it's important to maintain a healthy forest. For example, an average tree with a 50-foot crown provides almost 2,400 gallons of stormwater control, just one tree at maturity, and sequesters over 1,600 tons of carbon dioxide. So we appreciate taking the urban forest seriously. We did a lot of tree maintenance in 2014 and have quite a bit scheduled for 2015, particularly high-risk tree removals. The upper right photograph is the Maple Valley Highway. We coordinated with the Public Works Department to remove trees in 2014. We removed trees along the Cedar River Trail caused by beaver damage and worked with the parks crews. And then the other 2 outside photographs were contracted maintenance, high-risk trees. So a lot of the trees that we're removing, I would say 99% of the trees that require removing are invasive trees or weak species: cottonwood trees, alderwood trees, willow trees.
Excuse me. Sorry. What is considered a high-risk tree?
A high-risk tree, if there is a target where the tree can fall, a car passing by, somebody walking under a tree or near a tree, or hitting a building, those are high-risk trees. they've also been assessed to determine that just because you have a tree adjacent to something like that, that it's got some sort of decay, which would cause it to call, or it might have multiple stems. Those are high-risk trees.
I see.
Thank you.
I guess you're showing the cottonwood trees, and my understanding is that the cottonwood trees that we recently have taken out and in the past, when they've been surveyed and found to be rotten in the center, but when they take them down, they find that they're really rotten and dangerous. Sometimes the wood on them is only hanging on by a few inches. The rest of the tree, even though it may be big girth, there's just nothing in the center of that tree.
That's true. Yes, thank you. So in 2014, at 52 different locations, we did 115 high-risk tree removals, and we pruned 113 trees, maybe low limbs. We also pruned, and if necessary, another 228 trees. And so it's to maintain not only healthy trees, but public safety as well. And then we also try to work in special projects, particularly maintaining, again, safe walking surfaces, and we work with our public works crews and our parks crews in accomplishing these. The Logan Avenue project was deferred from 2014 to 2015 because of the amount of high-risk tree removals and also the increased costs associated with those high-risk tree removals. So Logan was rebudgeted to 2015, and we also have Park Avenue budgeted for 2015. And those will be removing sections of the pavement and repaving concrete, perhaps putting in larger tree grates, which is healthier for the trees. And we have another $25,000 budgeted for tree planting throughout the city. We finally finished the Cedar River Gabion repair after 5 years of going through permits. You might recall that was flood damage caused in 2009. We went through 2 formal consultations, and the estimated project cost is $285,000. The city's portion of that is 12.5% or $35,000, and we're currently working on closing out the project and seeing if we're eligible for some of the administrative costs associated, which are it's quite a bit after 5 years. The Kenyon Dobson bequest was official in September of 2014. The assessed valuation is $585,000. We are currently securing an appraisal on this property in the attempt to use it as an in-kind match for another grant. You might remember the long-term vision is to connect Lake Washington to King County's Cougar Mountain Park, which would connect to the city of Bellevue's Coal Creek Park, which would then connect back to the city of Renton on the Lake Washington Loop Trail system. And we acquired 2 parcels totaling 1/3 of an acre in 2013, adjacent to the Kenyon Dobson Park. This will be future trailhead parking as this area develops, and we will be receiving a $174,000 grant this year for that acquisition. And lastly, by no means least, we replaced the marble tiles, which is a very soft tile, with solid granite panels. And this project was funded by the Custer Fund. The total expenditures were $148,000. I want to let you know, though, you will see some other major work out there in the next month. 2 of the panels have cracks. They're under warranty, and the contractor will be replacing 2 panels. They do not have any inscriptions on them. They're just plain blank panels. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from council? Thank you so much.
Well, Peter is setting up to talk about the facilities. I do want to talk a little bit about the extensive time it does take us to go through some of our permitting process for some of our projects. Leslie talked about the Gabion, but we do have a lot of agencies we work with. We're blessed to have a river and a lake, and we're blessed to have a river and a lake. It is a lot of agencies that have a contact or commitment to making sure we're doing the environment and handling it all correctly. So, but it does take a lot of time and I think a lot more process to get us through a lot of our water projects. So that's why you'll see timing, especially down at Coulon. It wouldn't be our preference to do the walkway at the end of the summer through there, but that's when the water table, and that's when we can get permits to be next to the water to do that. So sometimes we have to work around where we can get the legal ability to be able to do all of that at the right time. So it's not always the most convenient, but sometimes that's what it leads us to. So Peter Renner and Greg Stroh are here from facilities to talk about some of the projects they've been working on.
And I would
Peter?
also like to thank you for the opportunity to talk about our capital projects from the last couple of years and the ones that are coming up shortly.
Real quick, Peter, are we going to get you done before the game? Or before you miss
Game's
a
on already and
portion?
tied. So,
At least you're keeping up.
thank you for your concern. I'd far rather be here with you tonight than I would be standing at home.
I don't know if I believe that, but we'll go with it, Peter.
And we with you, too.
Very politically correct.
It's saving my heart. One of the things that we've been most happy to be associated with, and that is the placement of security cameras around the city. And there have been some very well publicized experiences that we've had in the cameras being able to provide information that led to the arrest and conviction of people committing serious crimes. I can assure you that there are a lot of smaller crimes that are also discovered and evidence is provided through the placement of the cameras. So besides putting a large array of cameras downtown, we've also put them in parks where we've had vandalism issues or car break-ins, that sort of thing. So we also, as part of the program, replace old analog cameras as they fail. And altogether, there are 180 cameras in the system now. About 60% of those are high-definition cameras, digital cameras. We also, in some cases, where there are nighttime issues, put infrared illuminators. Of course, nobody knows they're there because they're infrared. And unless you have really sensitive eyesight, you don't see infrared. And we also use low-level light cameras in some other areas. We added cameras in conjunction with the school district at Meadow, and then at the senior center, again, because of car break-ins and some accidents and so forth, found that to be another good place to put cameras with a high degree of utility. Moving along to the Henry Moses Aquatic Center, those of you who go there frequently know that the original play structure in the shallow end was in pretty sorry shape. You know, the water, in order to maintain its purity, has to be highly purified with oxidizers, and that has a deleterious effect on the play structure. So play structures aren't something you can just head on down to the local big box and pick up. They're specialized product and very pricey, actually. This one was $115,000, but we know that the children enjoy it, and it's a big plus. Every year at the pool, we try to do something to enhance the experience of the people who are in attendance. Sometimes it turns out to be just replacement of the furniture, or maybe some mechanical upgrades, something like that. We added UV filters. There were some. We added some more so that when there's an accident in the pool, the water can be purified more quickly, that sort of thing. Then we next did a remodel of the entire 6th floor at the 200 Mill building to provide a permanent place for the city attorney. We had previously been leasing that space. The city's parks and facilities maintenance crews are housed in 3 separate buildings. This is a park maintenance facility that was originally Public Works facility, and it had a very bad roof, so we not only changed the roof out, we added 4 inches of insulation when we did that to improve the thermal efficiency of the building. That was pretty close to $100,000 to do that. We've done that on the facilities maintenance building, and coming up, we'll show some other upgrades on the other 2 facilities. We had a pretty serious problem at the senior center with the elevator, where, let's see, 1978, where after many years, there was an expansion of the hydraulic cylinder to a level that caused jerking as the elevator came to rest on different floors. And of course, with our seniors, stability is very important. So we scheduled that into our summer closure, and the repair itself went very well. There was some disadvantage to the public, however, because we didn't get the L&I inspection on this right away. There's only 6 inspectors for the whole state. You can't obviously schedule an inspection until you've completed the work, so we had to wait for a little while, a couple of weeks, before they could get in and give us the approval to start the operation of the elevator again. You're all familiar, I know, with the Reach Center of Hope in the former jail space, and what a rousing success that has been. And you can see the difference between the way it looked as a jail, just about as plain as it could possibly be with everything bolted down in place. And now it's much warmer and friendlier, and there's a beautiful library down there for the children to use, and it really serves the purpose very well. It's extremely quiet and peaceful there. Also in the former jail, we created a fairly large new police evidence storage. And previously, the police evidence was scattered around the city, and that made it difficult to keep track of everything. But the main reason that we had to do this is because the state has required ever more stringent retention schedules. And so the police department finds itself holding on to things much longer than they might have had to 20 years ago. And so there is sufficient space for expansion of evidence storage here for many years to come. That project altogether was $180,000. And then upstairs from there, for access to the police front counter, they also have records that they need to refer to quite often. And so we took what had been a visiting room for juvenile detention and converted that into file storage, so they didn't have to store it off-site and then call for it to come back and waste all that time. So it's much handier for them here. We participated with Fire District 40 in the remodel of Station 17. The Renton Fire and Emergency Services Department provides services under contract with Fire District 40. And so they contracted under a separate agreement for us to do the project management on that. We do, as a matter of course, as a part of the Fire and Emergency Services contract, provide facility and landscaping services. So we were very aware of what needed to be done. And the district was wonderful to work with, and they fully funded that project. And I can happily say that the response times out of this station, because of the programming that was done on it and the advantages taken with that design, provides for the fastest response to fires of any of the fire stations.
Huh.
The Emergency Operations Center on the second floor of Fire Station 12 was in need of some upgrades, so we added those boards that you see in the center. We had a new reception counter. The ham radio room was not adequately furnished, and so we set up some much better workstations for the ham radio operators, who, as you know, are very, very important in some emergencies if all telecommunication goes down. And so that turned out very well. It was altogether just $20,000. We acquired the Big 5 building as a potential library site, and it was in a demolition-ready state. And so it needed to come down one way or the other, and that was about a $300,000 project. And a large chunk of that was the asbestos abatement, which was 100% successful. And we did manage to save a few of the large Douglas fir timbers for a project in the future. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to recycle those into the interior of a building. Carco Theater had a problem in the lower level because of groundwater penetration. So it wasn't possible to use it for much of anything. And so in that case, we spent about $40,000, $47,000 injecting the floor with epoxy under pressure, and that successfully sealed the floor. And so now it has been developed by the current operator of the theater as an office area for some of their operations. Right out in front of City Hall on the police side, you know that the pavement coming down the ramp and on that lower level was very badly deteriorated. That's a topping slab on top of the structural slab, and it had gotten to the point where it was an absolute requirement to remove it. That was a $151,000 job. Here's a shot from the roof. And then that is it completed. It's just waiting for warmer summer weather to have the coating put on it so that it more closely matches the rest of the parking level. And then another interesting project was to relocate some of the city artwork from the libraries. In this case, those were panels from the main library downtown that went into the lobby at Fire Station 14. The facilities division, beside, well, in addition to the other things we do, is also responsible for the maintaining and the placement of city art. And when you have the number of bronze statues and sculptures that the city has, we have them on a rotational basis so that we make sure that they are kept in good condition. Otherwise, they can corrode and then we'll lose them. Now, we'll switch to the planned projects for 2015. We've got a number of older fire stations, and we have deferred anything that was cosmetic in nature. But we're at the point now where some of the carpet is badly flipped up, and so it could be a trip hazard, and so this year we'll be doing some carpet replacement. Fire Station 11 has a generator that's not large enough to power up the whole station in case of an extended emergency. So we're going to do the engineering on that to see what sort of a generator it would take to do that, and then install switching equipment. And then Fire Station 16, the oldest station, I believe, in the inventory, has old leaky windows, not thermopane, so we're going to be replacing those. We'll also continue with the camera upgrades. We did actually complete the 200 mil building cameras that focus on the lower levels that you can't see right from the main parking level. The walkway on the riverside of the mill building, and then also some parking lot coverage. As we add cameras with the capacity of high definition, they take a lot of more bandwidth, and so a part of the money gets spent every year to make sure that we have enough capacity by length of time that we have it in storage, so that if the police need to review an incident that happened 2 weeks ago, it's not going to be written over by quick switch. So we try to keep it about 30 days and don't drop below 21. We also added or used some of the money to add a backup server at the Emergency Operations Center at Fire Station 12, where the city's other backup servers are. And then, as I stated earlier, we'll be replacing some of the analog cameras where they've reached the end of their useful life. We've got a hydronic boiler replacement here at City Hall. There's 3 of them, and 2 have been replaced, and so this is the final one. We added 3 offices. They're done now, down on the first floor in Human Resources. It was necessary for the jobs of the people who are in these offices, their managers, to have a better acoustical privacy than they had, because you do get people from the public or city employees walking through, and they don't need to overhear some of the conversations that are going on sensitive topics. And then on the 3rd floor, there's been a computer training room for a number of years. We had an opportunity to use that space when we reconfigured City Hall a while back, and it's been used so much, and we believe that it can now be converted into a full-time training room. You see the systems furniture panels in the room. Those will be removed. The tables will be replaced with tables that hold the cables. We won't have any taped down extension cords on the floor. We'll meet the code for all of the electrical cords, and it'll expand from a capacity of 14 students to 30 students. So that's very helpful. On the 6th floor, we've finished the first stage of the permit area remodel. The intention of this project is to open it up to provide direct access by customers who come in, by the citizens who come in to get permits, to walk right over to the particular plan reviewer who's going to be working to provide them with the kind of a permit they need. There are going to be some kiosks for self-help. A lot of other cities have moved to that model already, and it's very successful, and we were just a little behind on the technology of that, and so we're happily going to be getting that done. Altogether, that's a $280,000 project over a 2-year period. Public Works Shop, the building on the right, the taller building, is the sign shop, and their output has increased greatly in the last number of years, and the kind of equipment they use to print the signs and provide other signage materials takes up a lot of more space. They have more sophisticated equipment and so forth, and so they made a very good case for an expansion of that operation. It'll be just 1 story high. It won't be tip-up concrete construction. It'll be steel construction, as simple as we can make it. And that'll be, the programming for that will happen this year. It's actually a 2016 project. I talked about the community services maintenance shops remodel, and we're intending to get around to the painting finally on the Bronson Avenue shop, and then replacing the furniture in all of the shops. Over the years, these shops have received furniture as it is handed down during remodels and so forth, but it hasn't kept up with the wear and tear on that furniture, and so now we actually need to replace those pieces as well. The 200 mil roof is currently under construction. That was an original roof from 1968 that had only had 1 additional layer put on over the years, but in the last 15 or so years, there's just been patches on top of patches on top of patches. And our reluctance to dig into that is because for the size of a roof that it is, it's not that large a roof, but there's so much equipment on the roof and so many penetrations and so forth that it was a really very expensive changeover. It's about $143,000 for a 6,000 square foot roof. But as I say, that is underway, and we've had some amount of collaboration from the cell companies that have equipment on the roof to get it up and off the roof so we can get underneath and so forth. So that's coming along. At the Senior Activity Center last year, we discovered a very tricky leakage problem that occurred only with wind-driven rain. And it turned out that, long story short, it turned out that it was not, that the roof underneath the shingles was not in a perfect plane. And so there was an opportunity for the edges of the plywood to buckle. And when they buckled, then it lifted the shingles, which a little bit. And that wouldn't ordinarily be a problem in a gentle rain, but when there's wind-driven rain, then it would force the water underneath and then we'd get a leak. So once we finally got that figured out, we realized we'd have to do a complete tear-off, get the roof in plane, and then replace the shingles. So that altogether is $100,000. Museum lobby remodel is a collaborative project with the Historical Society to make the front entry and the lobby much more user-friendly. Right now you walk into an office, it's a little bit like the first house you had where you opened the front door and you were in the living room. So no hallway, no closet, that sort of thing. So we're making it much more gracious, and it's a match fund type of a operation. Then we have new Highlands library construction. I'm sure you've driven by and seen the large concrete walls and the beams and so forth. And if we may have a minute to show you the latest video from today on that one. The Sunset Terrace building demolition is a project that we intend to do in maybe later this month or May. The yellow buildings you see were demolished already. Those are right across the street from the library. The library and the coal pit's first phase are on the lower right section. You can see the shadows of those. I didn't put them in color. The blue building is a housing unit that is being used both by the Renton Housing Authority and by the contractor for the library as a job shack. And then the red houses, or the red units, are the ones that are going to be demolished pretty soon. That's about a $340,000 project. The Cedar River Library, you're also familiar with and have seen the progress driving by. That's coming along just fine, and as reported in the newspapers, ahead of schedule, and it's stayed ahead of schedule so far. And then finally, some of you I know were able to either take a tour or go to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Renton Preparatory Christian School on the first floor of the 200 Mill building. And that has been a remarkable change in the building, and we're very happy. The kids are really happy to be there, and they're doing a good job of being ideal tenants. So that's the end of the that's the end of the presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions from council? Randy?
I'd just like to say it's a very impressive presentation, what a lot of work you've gotten done.
And we want to thank you so much for supporting us for all these years. I mean, you know, I know you're doing it on behalf of the citizens, and they've said they'd like us to take care of things, but you give us the funding to do that, and we really appreciate your support.
So we also try to recycle wherever we can. So as Peter talked about, the beams we found in the Big 5 site and other products, and also furniture that we can recycle. A lot of what went into the Hope Center downstairs was recycled from other places that we move things around. So we make use of things as much as we can and help our community out where we can for some of our nonprofits when we have ability to do that. We also manage a lot of leases. Facilities also oversees a lot of the leased properties that we take care of, and so those take continual review. All of our tenants at 200 Mill, the Liberty Park building, and the event center, and all of the other ones that we want to make sure continue to be a great asset to the community. So there's a lot of work that's just done through the parks, through facilities, through parks planning, that's just day to day to make sure it's a good experience for people to come through and enjoy what is their system, their buildings, their parks. So it's continual. We want to make sure it stays quality. Even though it gets older, it can still be a great experience, and it can still be very usable, and we take pride. I think people are always surprised when they come into some of our buildings, the age that they are, like the community center or the senior center. Highlands, North Highlands, and they're so well maintained, and the landscaping's well. So I think we have one of the best systems around. I think we run as lean, and we are very, very careful about our dollars. That's what we wanted to tell you about what we were spending for these projects. We pay, I think people are surprised also that we go through the permit process, just like everybody else does. We stand at the permit counter to get our permits for everything we do, because it's equal for all of us that are trying to make sure that we're doing things in the right way for the city. So we appreciate, again, the mayor's support, the council support, to make sure that we're maintaining and taking care of the things we have, and we're prioritizing them as you give us guidance to make sure that we have a good system going forward. We got some catch up to do, but we'll stay on it. So thank you very much for having us tonight.
Thank you. With that, committee of the whole is adjourned.